My name is Joe Prim, and I am the host of Prepare.Defend.Lead. In this episode, I have a very simple question. Do you want what you say you want? Chew on that, and I'll catch you on the other side of the intro.
The comfort and distractions of today collide to indulge our desires and provide a slow death by apathy. A superior primitive ethos exists. Prepare for tomorrow. Defend what you value and lead those you love. This mindset is the foundation of living an authentic life as a bold, disciplined, man resolute in your mission. Prepare, defend, lead. Your mission. Own it.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of PDL. Thanks for joining me, and let's get this thing going. Do your actions reflect your thoughts? So what do I mean by that? If someone judged you, if an alien came in, if somebody that didn't know you came in and asked you, what is it that you want? What do you truly desire? And they watched your actions for a week. At the end of that week, would your actions tell them what you had spoken? Do your actions reflect your thoughts on what you want, on what your goals are, on what your desires are, on where you want to be in a week or a month or 5 years from now? Do your actions reflect that? So I'm going to break this down into 3 actionable steps that will help you sort out if you are not living what you intend to be living. Number 1, you need to establish very clearly what it is that you want. The majority of people, if you ask them what they want in life, either they will have a horrible answer, they will have no answer, or they will throw something out there that they've heard repeated 100 times before. What do you want? Part of understanding what you want is being very honest with yourself. To evaluate yourself, where you are at in your life, and what it is that is important to you. But you must know what you want. I use this analogy in other podcasts about myself and sometimes getting to a point where trying to make this vision I have here a reality, where I would be pedal to the floor, but stuck in the mud, stuck in the mire, stuck in the snow, and the tires are spinning, and the fuel is being depleted. You're watching that gas gauge go down, and I know I'm trying to move this vision forward. I know that I need to move this mission forward, but yet I'm getting nowhere. Because I was not specific about where I wanted to go. I was not specific with myself about what I wanted to accomplish. I was not specific with myself on what it is that I wanted. And you can continue through for the rest of your life with some silly notion in your mind of what you want, of world peace, or all these things that you have absolutely no control over. Or generic thoughts of, oh, I want to be a good husband, or I want to be a good father, all the while lying to yourself that everything is okay. You need to be specific about what it is that you want. That's part of the reason why I joined and paid a good amount of money, a lot of money for me personally, to join a program to teach me about coaching and to teach me about online business. Because for years, I've had the pedal to the floor. I've been tired. I've worked tirelessly. I've worked all hours. I've missed all sorts of things in my life. I was grinding, as they say. But where was I moving? Not very much. The wheels were spinning. I was working hard. But I was not clear on what I wanted. And it wasn't until I got into an argument with my wife. That does not happen very often in this house. But we got into an argument, and she made it very clear, and she opened my eyes to the fact that if you are making way too much of a sacrifice to not be getting anything out of it, all this time, all this energy, all this money of our families that you're investing into this, what is it that you want? You need to know what you want to get out of this, and then you need to go after that. Enough of the generic, oh, I'm just trying to help people, or I'm trying to steer people in the right direction. No. And I didn't agree with her necessarily at the time. But as time went on and those days passed, and I reflected on what she had to say, because she knew what I was saying, but she was seeing what the actions were on the outside. Right? Go back to what I said before. Do your actions reflect what you're thinking, your thoughts? In her viewpoint, her vantage point from outside of seeing what was being accomplished, which was very little for a lot of effort and a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of money, didn't make much sense. Now, was that a call to give up this vision? Was that a call to stop this mission of challenging and encouraging men to prepare, defend, and lead, and really get their heads out of their behind and start living life? No, it wasn't. But it was a wake-up call that I needed to be even more specific on what I was doing. So I joined up with this expensive coaching program to help me sort these things out, to help me know what I needed to do next, to help me put my focus where it needed to be, because if this is what's important to me, doing this, helping men, then I needed to get serious about it. I needed to make some changes because my actions needed to reflect what I was saying that I wanted to do. So number one, you need to be very clear about what it is that you want. You want to become a better father? Great. Let's be specific about that. Why do you want to become a better father? How have you failed as a father so far? What does that mean to you to become a better father? Number two, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get what you just said that you wanted? What are you willing to sacrifice? Because if you're not willing to sacrifice anything, then you don't really want it, and you are going to continue to lie to yourself, and you are going to continue down the path that you are on that leads to nowhere. So number one, we're going to be clear with what we want. And number two, we're going to be clear on what it is that we're willing to sacrifice. For me, for that coaching program, the sacrifice was financial. A big chunk of money coming out of my checking account that will keep my mind and keep me going in the direction and committed to doing something and to figuring things out and to taking things step by step and being held accountable. That, for me, was my action in that area. What are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice Monday Night Football? How about watching football and playing fantasy football all week, all day long on Sundays? Are you willing to sacrifice that? How about some money out of the checking account so that you can go on a date and pay for a babysitter go on a date with your wife and pay for a babysitter and a dinner? And there are ways we can work around that if finances are the problem, right? Stop and pick something up for you and her at a nice restaurant on your way home from work. What are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice your time? Those that listen to this podcast, or I should say very few of those that listen to this podcast, have any idea the amount of time that I have put into Prepare, Defend, Lead, and Ever Vigilant, and all the things that go into this. Sure, you may listen to a 20 or a 40 or an hour podcast once a week, but the amount of time and energy and efforts that I have put into writing Open 6 Life-Changing Principles, or doing this podcast, or developing this coaching program that I'm working on, most will never know. And most don't need to know. My point is that there must be a sacrifice. There must be a sacrifice put on the altar of your desire. You want to become a better husband? What are you willing to give up to make that happen? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to say? What are you willing to forgive? What are you willing to look past? How far outside of your comfort zone are you willing to get or to go in order to get what it is that you want? Shortly before we moved out of Illinois down here to Texas, I remember reading that over 60% of the people that lived in Illinois wanted to leave that state. Most people look at that number and just think, what a tremendous failure this state is, that 60% of the people desire to leave. And I looked at it and thought, what a failure of the residents of this state that they do not take any action. Why have they not left? How far, how bad, how difficult, how much do they need to contradict your ideals or your thoughts before you pack up your bags and you leave? Leave your comfort zone. Leave your family. Leave what you know. Leave a good paying job. Right? There's a million reasons to stay. Number one, chief among them, is being comfortable, because that's what you know. But number two on my list, again, what are you willing to sacrifice? If I were you, I would take some time. I would take some time away and go over these three things that we're talking about here. I would take some time away. I would stop on my way home from work in a parking lot. I would leave the house on Saturday morning early, or go for a walk down to the park and sit at the park bench with a notepad and write down, what is it that you want? Pray about it. Meditate on it. Think about what it is in your life that you want. Because until you separate what you want from the going through the motions in just everyday life, you're going to get caught up in just living, just surviving, just pushing through. So again, first on your list, what is it that you want? Figure that out. Number two, what are you willing to sacrifice to get it? Is it time? Is it money? Is it energy? Is it efforts? Is it getting out of your comfort zone? What is it? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to make what you want happen? Number 3, take action. Sacrifice, give up, and throw out that which is preventing you from getting what you want. You know, there is going to be a cost involved. There is going to be a cost involved because whenever you decide to do one thing, it means you're also deciding not to do something else. So no matter what you choose, whether you choose to read a book, that means you chose not to watch TV. Maybe you chose to watch TV, that means you chose not to have a conversation with your wife. Maybe you chose to continue working on a project, that means that you chose not to go to the family barbecue. Everything that we choose, we are also not choosing something else. So there is a cost behind every choice that we make. But the clearer that we can be on what it is that we want, will help us make the choice on what sacrifices need to be made and help us make the decisions that need to be made on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis to keep us on task because we are clear on what is important to us. But we also need to be honest with ourselves about weighing the cost. Just for an example, let's say that you give up your Sunday of watching the early game and the late game. Now maybe today that seems like a big sacrifice. But when you weigh that, taking that action today versus the cost of a divorce a year from now, or 2 years from now, or when you weigh that cost to losing your daughter to drugs or bad friends or any of the other temptations and distractions that abound in our modern society, does that cost seem so big? We need to continually be weighing the cost. Because it's not just the cost of doing something, it's also must weigh in the cost of not taking action, of not being there, of not listening, of not looking at the pictures that were colored, of not watching the movie that your daughter or your son wanted to watch, of not sitting down and playing Legos, of not going on a walk, of not doing these things. There's a cost both directions. And that's why it's so important that you are clear on what it is that you want to help guide those decisions that seem small today but continue to compound the eating bad, the not going to the gym or not working out, not taking care of your health, not getting the sleep you need. All of these things, there's a cost in the end to them. So let's review these one more time. Number 1, know clearly what you want. This is not something that while listening to this podcast, you should just say, yep, this is what I want. Take some time, meditate, pray, think about it, discuss it with other people that are important to you. What is it that you want? Number 2, what is it in your life today that you would need to sacrifice or that you need to change or that you need to look at differently in order to make that happen? And number 3, take action. Do it. So let's be real here, guys. The reality is no one is coming to save you. Where you are today in your life is a result of your beliefs and the decisions that you made based on those perhaps awful, perhaps faulty, perhaps taught to you by well-intended parents or pastors or leaders in your community. But either way, those decisions and the actions that you have taken based on those decisions have put you where you are in your life today. My intent with PDL is to equip you to uncover the hero within. The hero that's been buried by years of lies and years of attempts to live up to the expectations of those around you. There are 3 ways that I'm doing that at this time. Number 1 is this here podcast, Prepare.Defend.Lead. If you listen, if you get something out of this podcast, I would appreciate you leaving a review, sharing this podcast, and subscribing to this podcast. Those 3 things are the fuel that keeps this podcast and this mission moving forward. Number 2, my book, Open, 6 Life-Changing Principles. Those 6 principles are still an important part of my life all these years later. They guide and direct the way that I look at life as a father, as a husband, as a leader, and help keep me going down the right path in the direction that I want to go by continually evaluating myself and holding myself up against those 6 principles. If you have read my book, thank you. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please leave a review on Amazon. I would really appreciate that. And number 3 is my coaching program, Heroes Wanted. The idea behind that is boys growing up, we had these thoughts, we had these visions, we had this idea in our mind that we would grow up to be heroes. And I believe that there is a hero in each one of us that has just been buried underneath, as I said before, years of lies and years of living up to the expectations of other people, years of pain and struggles and difficulty. And that's what the coaching program is about, uncovering that hero that's lying there dormant, to uncovering him, dusting him off, and bringing that hero back to the forefront. You can find out about the coaching program at Prepare.Defend.Lead.com. As always, hold fast and God bless.